6th edition of the Halifax Black Film Festival, founded by the Fabian Colosse Foundation, co-presented by TD in collaboration with Global News. Available online from February 24th to the 27th. Be sure to get your all-access pass on halifaxblackfilm.com. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Kaya Sparks, and before we get started, we wish to begin today's session by acknowledging that we are on Mi'kma'ki. We live, work, and play on ancestral land that belongs to the Mi'kmaq people, First Nation peoples of Nova Scotia. As we seek to build a more inclusive municipality, we remember that we are all treaty people and that those of us who are non-Indigenous each have an individual responsibility to acknowledge and address the centuries of injustice, suffering, and unbroken promises that resulted from European settlements. So, welcome everyone. Today's panel is Being Black in Halifax, Meet the Filmmakers. So we have 3 out of 4 filmmakers here that were a part of the National Emerging Filmmaking Program. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves, maybe starting with you, Deborah, and talk a little bit about your film?
Sure. Thanks, Kaya. My name is Deborah Castrilli. I am from Nova Scotia and grew up there. I'm currently based in Toronto, and my film is called Framework, and it essentially is centering the queer Black lens in Nova Scotia. Wanted to just open a dialogue with 3 individuals that I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with over the span of a few weeks to months, and just kind of have a conversation around what they want to explore within their experience, that intersection. So yeah, I'm very grateful to have been able to have the opportunity to just uplift these voices.
Hi, Kylie.
Hello. My name is Kylie Johnson. I am a proud African Nova Scotian woman. I am a spoken word artist, a published author, and community advocate. My film is titled Scratching the Surface, and it really touches on the mental health struggles amongst the African Nova Scotian community. And my film is going to go through the lens of me facilitating a writing workshop explaining the power of words and how we use them.
Beautiful. And hello, Jodelle.
Hey, how's it going? I'm from Nova Scotia, born and raised, 29 years old. Been in and out of the jail system, foster care, group homes. And my film title is Finding a Way Out. It's about finding something that you're passionate about and that helping create a change in your life. And with so many different things going on in people's lives, like for me, it was mental health and kind of depression, like a really dark spot, dealing with identity and stuff, like not really knowing who you are as a Black man growing up puts a lot of pressure on you. So photography for me was my ticket. So
I want to start the discussion off with talking about silent battles, because I feel that in each and one of these films, that was something that they could all relate, was that there was some type of silent battle within the Black community. You know, a lot of us do have battles that we are silently fighting, and oftentimes it's hard to find someone to talk to, or even express that that pain that you're going through within. So, Jodelle, maybe we can start with you and kind of explore what that, when I say silent battles, what does that mean to you in relation to, everything that you have gone through and have kind of outlined in your film?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the silent battles are definitely something that we all face. But as a kid growing up, like my mom and my dad, like I said, they had their addictions. Great parents. Yeah, I'm not knocking them, but the battles that we go through are. Um, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, how, when going through something, something like that, that's huge to experience. And it's, like,
Okay. Yeah.
is it something that you just have to kind of navigate yourself? Like, is it a lot more
Yeah.
to weigh on you?
Growing up, like you never really taught to talk about your problems, right? So for me, like I never had nobody that I could really vent to or talk to. So um, I kept it internalized, and then that aspect kind of created more problems. That some were damaging, some were more not damaging. But it definitely creates a different path for you when you hold your problems in and you suffer in silence.
Hmm. And Guy Lee, I mean, part of your film was um, opening up those problems and those battles and healing that. So when Jodelle talks about, like going through his situation, like, how do you unravel all of that when when you have so much going on? Like, what is it as Black people? What do we do to be like, okay, this is, I'm going through something, and this is how I have to heal from it?
I would say for our silent battles and then like trying to heal them, I would say that a good way to do so is finding an outlet. So for Jodelle, it was photography. For me, it was writing. I also think that it's about, we talk a lot about generational trauma, and I don't think that we understand a lot about generational habits. And I think that we don't realize a lot of the times, like some of the things we were taught and that we internalized, and we normalized, that we have to learn how to switch the narrative in a sense. And when I say that, it's because I feel like we're always taught as Black people that it's like we have to have like this strength, this courage, this like, this,
Resilience.
yeah, like this resilience. And I mean, I get it because I understand again that generational trauma aspect and then in terms of everything that our ancestors have done. But I think that when you're talking to young children and then they grow up to become adults, and if all we talk about is strength, when do we ever have the space or the time to be vulnerable? So I feel like switching the conversation, changing the narrative in terms of creating safe spaces for people to feel vulnerable, and safe, and to have those uncomfortable conversations. I also think that it comes down to resources. I think that a lot of the times when we see mental health stuff geared in and outside of our communities, we know that we're not the target audience. Like we're not the people that they're trying to tell to seek wellness and to feel whole. And a lot of the time, we don't see ourselves represented in the people that we seek help from. And I think that when you think about systemic racism, you already know there's the lack of trust. So that right there becomes a barrier. So now we can't access resources. Um, we're already not talking to each other or to anybody else because we believe that we have to be so strong that it's kind of like you don't talk about those things that you battle with eternally. Um, and then, so like, I feel like almost the final steps after all of that stuff would be finding an outlet, finding something to do to kind of release those feelings, like, and to know that it's okay to feel them. So like, accept your feelings, but you also have to like go through them, because I think a lot of the times all we do is ignore. And I feel like with an outlet, it's like you're really allowing yourself to sit in it but go through it as well.
Hmm. So, Jodelle, for you, was there, growing up, was there a lack of resources?
I mean, like I'm the youngest of like, well, I just say my brother. I'll say like because my brother was one at the time that like I recall living with me. Like my brother, his outlet was sports, and like he was always in the sports. But like for me, being younger, he's like in his 30s, so we're not too far behind. But for me, I remember times where I was like, "Yo, bro, let me come play ball hockey with you. Let me do this, let me do that," and he was just kind of like, "Yo, you're too young. Like, I'm sorry, buddy." And so like my outlet became, the streets. When I found myself in a situation where I could never imagine, but yet I'm like being kind of like, accepted, I guess. You created, I essentially created a different version of me, right? And that was my outlet. And, started selling weed and then escalating into that, getting in trouble, throwing rocks at cars, just slowly progressive, bad behavior. And that was my outlet. And I just ended up getting my first jail sentence and stuff. And then you know I found out, the outlets that I was doing, the habits I was doing, they're not, it's not normal, right? But it was my normal. So um yeah, outlets, like, having something positive to do definitely helps, for sure.
Hmm. And Deborah, did you, learn anything from um, the characters in your film, about their struggles and being queer and, coming out or not coming out or being accepted or, can you share a little bit about um, what you've learned from directing that film?
Yeah, so to both Jodelle and Guylee's points, I feel like outlets and having and being and feeling seen and having those resources is super important, and not just saying like, oh, this is for you, but actually seeing people who look like you and who identify similarly to you in spaces. And Guy Lee acknowledged that, like, the spaces to feel vulnerable and to feel safe and to feel like you can actually just like relax and just like sigh and be there and feel comfortable is important. I think we're all seeking that out, and that was a big thing I was looking to explore in this film, is like what it means to be fully seen, what it means to have community. And I think community support is so important in our growth as human beings and our feeling of connectedness. And what was so inspiring to me about these three individuals was just that they hadn't met prior to our film. They had never interacted, but to see them hold a conversation for a few hours and share space and then share in each other's dreams and see each other within their own dreams by the end was powerful, because it's like, wow, like really being around people that you feel comfortable with does make a big difference in just your willpower to go back to the spaces where you're less comfortable and just and have to see your life through in other senses. And hopefully all of our films can start more conversations around that need for community, that need for outlets, and just making sure that more representation happens in media, and in smaller spaces as well. Like the Guy Lee was mentioning, I think just having even people who offer these resources look like you, I think that's hard to find. It's hard to find a lot of places, and it's just something we need to talk about more. And I'm hoping that this sparks more conversation at the very least.
Hmm.
I think like, can I interrupt for a sec?
Yes,
I
please,
was gonna
please.
say, I think that there is resources, but I feel like in like my areas that I see, a lot of like people falling down and like not seeing no way out. is like I think like well no never mind. I ain't gonna say nothing. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you can. You
I was done. Please say what you're going to say.
please.
You know what I'm gonna start doing, ladies? So if you see me over to the side, I'm gonna start writing stuff down, right? So I can have like my thoughts more together, like because I was starting with one and then I was like, nah, right? So I'll just bang it out when I write it down instead of I'll shut up.
But that's the thing too, is like the resources.
Yeah, but like
We have to make these resources.
there's not much advertisement. Yeah. There's
But
there's
even
like there's groups of people, like there's soap ads, for example, like there's resources in certain areas where like if people really felt the need to reach out, there's so much misconception. So much misconception. People really don't know where to go. There's talk about it, but there's no real established center for people that like us that that understand the plan, the project. There's so much talk. There's so much people that are saying there's resources, but there's not really nothing there.
And to your point, like when you say there's resources and we need to build them, of course we do, because we know what's best for us, or like it's going to look different for everyone, but like having those conversations within your own circles and the people and being like, what would that look like? What would a safe space look like for me, or a place where I can go to access? But that's also exhausting work. Like, you know what I mean? Like to have to not only be tired and then also create your own resource to then not be tired. It's like, when do I just get a break? And I think that we're all kind of pointing that out, of just like, where are these spaces where we can just show up, be tired, not have to explain it, not have to build it. Unfortunately, some of us maybe have more willpower some days to do that work, but not everyone should have to. And so maybe this will allow us to talk more about it. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but yeah.
If I could add to what Deborah said and Jodelle said, I do believe we have important people in our community, and I do believe that they provide top of the line work. And to be honest, a lot of these people aren't people that are recognized. They're not people that we see every day, I guess, out in the limelight. But I'm telling you, if you go to your community, you'll find these people behind the scenes, and sometimes I think that they don't even sleep. And I think that goes back to what Deborah's point is that yes, we know what it is that we need, and we are the ones to create them. A lot of the time, for these programs and these ideas and stuff that we have, we don't even, like, again, it goes back to the resources. We don't have like the funding and stuff. So then that one person or those few people that are like holding so many people down on their back, it just becomes too heavy. And then so what I find is we have so many amazing community leaders that don't get recognized but are experiencing burnout behind the scenes. So it's like, how can they promote healthy mental health habits, or resources, or things around wellness, or positive outlets, or helping us find jobs, if they're exhausting themselves, if they're experiencing burnout, if trauma is starting to creep up on them, and it's like it's getting hard for them to function in life. So I think it goes back to even Deborah's point about community. I feel like it's collective work, and even outside of our community, collaborating with people, like making people be held accountable, like the government and stuff. So it's like, yeah, you can use our ideas, yeah, we can lead and facilitate them, but we do need help and support, because I shouldn't have to put my whole community on my back and burn myself out in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. That's powerful, and that speaks volumes. Um, Kylie, can you talk about um, your workshops and how the work that you do to help youth and others in your community?
Yeah. In my writing workshops, I like to dismantle, um, I guess, the educational ways of teaching writing, and with all of the rules, because I know that, especially for a lot of the times with youth, especially Black youth in our communities, it's when they go to English class and it's the reading and writing, and then there's so much structure and there's so much rules, it's usually kind of when they fade away, and they don't believe that they're capable. So one point that I love to make inside of my workshops is that like we are all storytellers. Like we all have something to share. And that it's important. Like in all of our stories will impact different people, and that's a good thing. um I like to show them how they can bring their real experiences to the table, how people will relate to them. um and then I like to give this space to share, because I find that a lot of the times, yeah, you may have these thoughts, yeah, you may write them down, but when do you actually ever get to like share these thoughts? um and get to hear like people's feedback on them, and see what they actually do think of you as a creative writer, which is a really good field to go into. But most of all, I think I just like providing a safe space for youth to show up as themselves, a space where there's no judgment, a space where they can express themselves however it is, like, and meeting them where they are. If you show up to that workshop and maybe you've had a bad day, I want you to show up, in your anger, because that's what we're there to do, is to meet each other where we're at and to work through it. Like, I don't want them to pretend, I don't want them to build walls. I just want to show them, I guess, the impact of words, and the importance of communication, and healthy communication at that.
And for that, I'm just gonna add, if there was more workshops like, like yours, Kylie, and it was more noticed, then like obviously, like for example, me and another person had a conversation the other day. Me and Sobaz actually had a conversation about an individual, and he ended up showing up, and he said, "Man, I just wasn't feeling it. I relapsed. I just dug myself in a hole, and he just felt disconnected." And that's what it's about, making them feel connected, making people that are broken feel connected, because for me as a kid, I never felt no connection. The only connection I felt is when I had money and I didn't have to depend on nobody, right? Because I was my own self, like I didn't have to like depend on anybody, right? And that's what it's about. As a lot of kids, they're lost and they don't have no, guidance, connection, or bonds. They don't. They're just, yeah. So if we
Awesome.
had more of that outlook, we would be, you know, I know I would probably be in a different area of my life, but everything that I went through, it taught me to kind of help the next generation. So like, I mean, like I'm not sitting there saying I'm a victim at all, right? Because like I don't see it as that, right? So I'm grateful for everything I've done, everything I've been through, uh, despite it breaking me or not breaking me, So, but if we had more community support, that's that. Yeah, I agree, 100%. I'm on board 100%.
Mhm. So, when did you find photography? When did you find like that was a passion of yours?
So I got into spoken word and kind of stuff like that. Like a lot of dark, depressing stuff, because like we're dealing with depression. Like that was my outlet, was my venting spot. I got locked up in the penitentiary, Spring Hill. I got my first trafficking bid, and I was kind of pretty much going crazy. Like I read the Bible, I was praying to God, I, did everything in my power that I could have done to kind of change my mindset. And it worked for the moment, but it wasn't until I kind of started messing with like spoken word, or like kind of just writing stuff down or catching poems that like caught my eye. I got into that, and then fast forward, um linked with Sobaz through that, and then I got a camera, and my camera is like, I can grab it and show you guys that it's like this big telescope of a camera, and I picked it up and I took a picture, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. And I got my car and I drove, and I went out to the woods and I took some nature pictures and everything, and I was just like, yeah, this is way better than sitting on the corner and fucking not knowing what's going on, even despite the fact you're not making no money right now. I was just really taken away by that, right? And Gomez had mentioned, videography too, like into film and stuff. This is an ASCAP professor, and Sobaz and I were talking and stuff, and so it was just like, whoa, like there's different stuff out there that can grab your attention instead of just talking. You can actually do the things that you feel like you want to do. So the moment I picked up my camera, the very moment I picked up my camera, took a picture, I was like, yeah, I've always liked taking pictures as a kid. It's just like we said, it's not having the connection and not being connected with people and not knowing your resources or having a positive influence. It's about, there's more people out there that want to see the next person fail for their own benefits than to actually watch them, grow. And that's why, like, I feel that's why in like Halifax we have so many people that are lost, because like, like when like if I go down there and I, hang down around them areas, like sure I used to sell dope or whatever, but like I've always spoke real, right? You know what I mean? So when I go down, I can sit there and talk to these guys, and some of these guys, they take it and they run with it and they don't come back. And other people, they feel lost, right? So it's about creating connection with people, and that's, I feel like I'm
So
talking, so
so when you picked up a camera, did things start to change in your life? Did you find more peace with yourself? Did you find a new circle? Because,
yeah, yeah.
we mentioned in the beginning, we talked about pursuing passions and what that can do. So, like, what changed for you when you picked up a camera?
When I picked up the camera, like I said, I just got lost. I got lost in my own world, and not the world that I once thought was my world. I just picked up the camera and I was like, I just felt more at peace. I felt myself down in the valley, Cape Breton, not Cape Breton, PEI, New Brunswick, just all over the place, exploring, and I have Facebook. Actually, I think you're on my Facebook, Krim Oliver. So I have Facebook, and I just created a Facebook page, and I was starting to take pictures, of hawks, eagles, everything, right? Flowers, Peggy's Cove, I just really started spending more time away from the corner life, or selling dope, or, hanging around the wrong people. Like I invested more time into what I wanted to do, and what also was going to make me as a wholer person, because I felt broken. I felt like I didn't, like, I don't really, apart from my kids, like I have my kids, but like it's like, what's your purpose in life? Like, what is your purpose? Like you're old now, you've been through the ringers, like you're gonna keep putting yourself through it, or you're not, right? So the camera for me, and I did a couple weddings, I got paid like, $1,000 for one, 500 for the other. And I was like, that's dope money, like, and I don't mean like dope money, but like I mean like that's like, it's a good chunk of money, and that it just replaced it replaced everything. It's like, if I have my camera and I get better at doing this, then I can create a living and create a company, So like everything that I have, everything that I've been through, it doesn't even matter, because if I take the opportunity that I have, which is my camera, and I better myself, I can create something better, And it's not just going through it; it's going through it, living it, and now being a product of what it was. It's you being better, So that's my that's
Mhm.
that's that's my outlook. The camera for me, right away, and anytime I pick it up, like anytime I look at it, it's like I that passion just is still burns. So it's like it takes me
Yeah.
away. It takes me away from an environment that I typically might be around. You know.
Yeah. Deborah, what inspired you to start filmmaking?
Well, honestly, I've always been a very visual person. I never was a photographer like Jodelle. Well, actually, that's not true. Maybe not to Jodelle's expertise, but I used to do photography as a kid, like jokingly, but I forgot about that until now, actually. But really, it was about storytelling, and I've, like I said, always been very visual, and I had stories I just wanted to see, and I was just like tired of waiting for them to be seen. And I knew long term I'd like to direct at some point in my life, but a few years ago I just came to terms with the fact like there was no reason to wait around. I don't know what I was waiting for, to be honest. And so yeah, I just think it's powerful. I never really thought about documentary specifically as a type of filmmaking I want to do, but I really think there's something beautiful about being able to just witness someone in their own element, whatever that you decide that to be, and kind of just leave space for what is going to happen, or maybe curate an experience sometimes too, and curate dialogue around different topics that are really happening in our world and our communities. So that excites me about filmmaking, but I'm looking forward to doing more in the future for sure.
What do you hope people learn from this film?
Honestly, I really just hope it starts conversation like on a base level. I don't expect everyone to necessarily understand it fully, maybe it, and not to say that because maybe you don't understand the perspective because it's not your own experience, or maybe you don't understand the style of it, or maybe you don't even understand why it was happening fully. But what I think is incredible is we're watching this conversation between these three people, like I said, who've never met before, and they're brought in this room and they get to like have an open dialogue about so many issues. I wish we could have shared it all. It was like a 2-hour interview and we only shared like one question basically at the end. But if it inspires people to create more dialogue within their own circles, that's really all I hope they take from it, because I don't think we're providing the answer to what do these safe spaces look like. Like I went into it thinking, what does it mean to be seen, or what does community mean to people? And I don't think we answer that, but I think that conversation needs to be ongoing within your own communities, because I can't go to like Brazil and be like, this is what needs to happen here because I'm Black, you're Black, so this is what happened. I think everyone needs to contextualize it within their own spaces, their own people, and continue to have conversations. And that's really all I hope people take from it, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Kylie? What do you hope people can take from just watching your short film?
I would say similar to Deborah, that I hope that it does start the conversation, or I would even say continue the conversation, because I feel like as of late, I've definitely seen a lot more mental health talk in the Black community. Um, but I also hope that after seeing the film, um, that maybe it helps somebody connect to a resource. Like maybe it helps somebody to actively seek therapy, and to seek that with somebody that looks like them, so they can gain a different experience of therapy and to see how it's helpful. Um, I hope that for my community, um, it makes them realize why collective healing is so important, because I feel like amongst our communities, we experience so much trauma and so much grief on a daily basis. So I hope it shows that collective piece of like how we really all do need each other. And we need to go back to some of those foundational roots in terms of taking care of each other. Um, and I think one of the cool things about my film, similar to Deborah's, is that it's like you're filming us in a space having a conversation. There's gender gaps, there's age gaps, but it's like the conversation is so relevant amongst all of us. Like with every little word we're saying, everybody's like, "Oh, I relate to that. I get that. I felt like that." And they're able to share their experiences. I feel like for the elders in the room, they were able to leave wisdom, which is good. And I liked making that connection back to the elders, because I feel like um, for a minute there, and it seemed like we're slowly slipping away from the importance of our elders and why we need them and why we need to stay connected. And that mentality of it takes a village to raise a child. And so like I feel like having the elders there, having their input, was really important. Yeah, so I hope they take away collective messages, but most of all, just the importance of validating yourself through your vulnerability and definitely seeking help.
Mm-hmm. Jodelle, you have anything you want to add to that?
I feel like for me, like my film, it's about like I've held everything in, time after time, like I said, coming into my 30s, it's about just helping the next person, it's dealing with all your pain, internalizing it, and helping other people that are coming behind you. People, some are less fortunate that don't, like, they end up breaking under the pressure, and they just, so for me it was just definitely like an icebreaker, like kind of want to touch bases on, how much everything's suppressed in our community, like our mental health. Like there's not much talk about mental health, and there's a lot of young guys that I'm assuming can relate to me, and so it's about connecting with the people, or who are in similar situations. And as Kylie was saying, for her film, the three, amongst not three, but like amongst the people that were there, it was about them guys feeling comfortable enough to connecting, and not feeling like they got to internalize everything that they're dealing with, and not having no outlet, or let alone not even an outlet, just somebody that they can vent to and then reciprocate what they're saying, and create a bond, and maybe do some healing through that, a circle, like a healing circle kind of, but so for me, I definitely just want to touch bases on, as a black man, dealing with who you are, your identity, what you surround yourself around, and how you grab it all and hold on to it, and who you become from it, you know.
In many circumstances, we feel that, we're alone in these battles, or like that no one else is going through what we're going through. And I mean, like in your film, Kylie, when you look around the room, like there's quite a few people in that room. And like you said, gender gaps, age gaps. And it's like, once you start discussing, what it is that's going on, you start to realize, yeah, I'm not the only one going through this. So as a community, how do we create more spaces so that we can open up to each other and heal? Because I know that personally, I have constant battles, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And sometimes you feel that you're alone. So it's like, how do we get into these situations where we can create more spaces so that we don't feel alone, or that we can have these spaces once a week or once a month where we can just open up to each other and be like, hey, I'm going through this too, you're not the only one, so we can feel better about ourselves moving forward. Because you know I see, just looking back on just this past year, and a lot that's happened in this city, it's like everyone's affected. One family's grieving a loss, is the whole community is grieving. And it's just like one thing after another, after another, after another. And then you add on school, or you add on work, or you add on finances. And then it's just like,
So,
like, are we broken down, or are we going to build ourselves up? Are we going to come together and really, like, just, although there's mental health services, I don't really see those mental health services doing much for our community. So it's
yeah,
like,
I've
how
had I've
how
had a sorry for cutting you off. I've had a mental health person tell me, like, after me going to him, he's like looked at me, and I remember clear as day, which deterred me from going there again. He's like, "Wow, Jodo, like I don't know what to tell you. Like it sounds like, you're going through a lot or something like that." And I was like, "Well, if you don't know what to tell me, how can I tell myself anything?" So I definitely feel like, as when I reached out, I felt failed by the wrong people, I guess. Like I put my trust in people, and I got failed by the wrong people, and then that creates, a wall for people. So I think the government, we got to target something with the government and get something going on there, and start at a younger age, because it starts, trauma starts at a young age. And if we ain't really shaping the kids' mindsets to what, like, they're used to, like say you come from a home that is broken or something, we're only creating more of the people that are suffering, when there's, like, so, like, I mean, it's great that we're doing what we're doing. Like for me, it's great that I can do what I can do, but I can't really do anything until the people actually live what they went through. Like I can only talk to adults, like I can't, what I mean? I can't look at my 7-year-old and be like, listen, one day you're gonna grow up, maybe happy, maybe depressed. I can't really give her that outlook on things right now, because I don't want to take away her innocence.
yeah.
So it's like, if there was a certain age that was targeted or something that the government could start, like at this point in time you could reach out to this community and this community, or I don't know, like I'm getting off track here, but the government, I think for sure, and the age need to find, like, at what age do people start getting into trouble, or for me, what age do people start getting in trouble, like, so like when I go do my research or when I want to help people, I would like to help people like that are either going to start experiencing it or already experienced it, like, like I there.
Yeah, Guy Lee, in your film, it was kind of like a learning moment for me when you explained how one of the students in the class had his head down and it was like he was sleeping, and you asked him like what's going on, and he there was like a shooting the night before and he couldn't sleep, and it was just, and then he's thinking about that in school, and I'm just like, wow. And he's probably like a young child, right?
Yeah.
So it's like in that kind of situation, like, that's the importance of you being there, right?
I will say two things to your question, and kind of touch points on what Jodel said. So, the number one thing I would say is a couple years ago, due to work, I actually had to seek therapy. And so, my therapist was white. And at the time, I felt like, not that we would could relate, but I felt that she was helpful, or she was able to provide like action oriented goals that I could really work on. I felt that she really validated me through those moments. And as I continued on with her, even after I left the job, I still continued, because I was like really in a dark spot, and I was like, I really need somebody to talk to. And it's like, you can only vent to your family and friends so much. It's like after a certain point, it's like, I don't want to hear about this job anymore, but it's like really affecting you deep down. And so I continued on with her as I was feeling these things. And then it, like, as we were leading into COVID, and I'm like really feeling things, like we're at the height of Black Lives Matter. We're locked in the house, you're sitting in the dark a lot, like, it's less human interaction. And I'm having therapy sessions with her, and I realize, like, I don't connect. Like, she helped me in a moment, but it's like she's not somebody I can continue the journey on with, because it's like, now that I'm feeling like these things and these emotions, it's like she doesn't relate to these things. So it's like, how can she provide action oriented goals, or coping mechanisms for me to practice, to get me to healing, and to get me to keep moving and going through what I'm experiencing, if she doesn't understand? And even to Jodel's point, in one of our last sessions, she even said to me, I really, like, as a white woman, I don't know what it's like to be you. Like, I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. And I think that's like when the bulb hit for me, that it's like, you really do need a therapist that understands you. And so, what I say to people about seeking therapy or finding a therapist is, for a guy, it's like your barber. Don't stop until you find the right one. Like, you don't have to stick to that first person, or even if it's like a government resource, so like you're assigned to that person, just because they assigned it to you in the first place, keep advocating for yourself until you find somebody you're comfortable with, and that you really feel like, okay, we're working through some stuff and we're moving. And so when I came to that conclusion, and then I did find a Black therapist, the difference was like crazy. I found myself like talking to her about like my spirituality. Like, we talked about God, we prayed. I got to talk about family dynamics, where she understood, especially from an African Nova Scotian lens, in terms of like the boundaries and stuff that I was trying to set. So that's what I would say in terms of the therapy piece. In terms of cultivating spaces so we can all have these conversations as we are all experiencing things. And like you mentioned, Kaya, we do experience collective grief. It's like when one thing happens to one family, it's like we all feel it. Like, it's like, you're like, oh, I like, what if that was like my sibling? What if that was my mother? And it's like, you just know those feelings like so close to home. what I would say about cultivating those spaces is, even though right now we're virtual and virtual is it's adapting, I would say that we have to get rid of like the technology part of it, because I feel that a lot of the times people really do believe they're checking in because they see you on social media. So it's like like you said, you're feeling alone, like you're moving through life, but it's like you're really feeling isolated. Like, and I feel like even with COVID and everything that's happened because of this pandemic, you feel 10 times more isolated, or distant from everybody. And I feel like on social media, it's like people will see you and maybe they'll like a picture. Maybe some of them will even comment. Maybe you'll even write a status saying that you had a bad day. So maybe everybody will send well wishes. But it's not the same as that human connection. I find like when you actually gather, like, so when I get together and I like go visit my grandmother, and I visit her and her friends, it's like that collective gathering of being able to like hear their stories, talk to them, give them hugs and embrace them. Like, that's how it is that you're really feeling seen and validated. And I think that because of social media, it's like a lot of the times, even when we're in those dark places or those vulnerable moments, it's like we're seeking validation through these apps or through these screens. And you're not going to get it in the same way that you would if there was a human connection. Another thing that I'll say, I don't want to like talk too long, but is that a healing journey can only start with you. And I think that in order to get to all of that collective stuff and to really support and help one another, you really have to do some deep work. And that really does start through therapy. That starts through recognizing maybe things that you do that aren't so healthy and that really are affecting your behavior. Something that I love to say is, you are what you consume. The things you watch, the things you listen to, the people you're around, the environment you're surrounded by. And so it's like you need to start making those changes by yourself first, and around you. And then I think it's you'll start attracting the right kind of things, the right kind of people, the right kind of resources, and you'll get there.
Amen.
I was just gonna touch bases on that, like 100%. Like what you are consumed around, that's you are what you consume, right? And that's for me. That's hit it bang on, right? I became a product of my environment. Now I'm just you know come from environment trying to better myself, and I have bettered myself. I'm still dealing with some stuff. It all stemmed from one thing, and one thing on top of another on top of another, just dealing with it by myself created, my charges and what I'm dealing with right now. But, I like to think that everything happens for reasons. This man asked my daughters to come play in the pool. I ended up assaulting them. This is my first charge after 5 years. Created more charges because I felt, I'm already charged. So one turned to two, two turned to three, three turned to four. On top of that, dealing with, my problems, I really had nobody that I felt I could vent to. And the person that I had, like, Kylie, they were white, and race is nothing by far. I don't see color, right? My mom's white, my dad's black, but I just didn't connect with them. And it wasn't until like one of my recent episodes is where let's, like my mindset kind of went dark, that I clicked and I was like, listen, I was like, listen, I need help, So I reached out to Sobaz once again. Sobaz reached out to Robert. Robert reached out to JJ. JJ and I connected. Come to find out today, talking to him on the phone because I had a counseling session today on the phone, right? And he was like, yeah, I'm, come from here. I'm this, I'm that. My age is, this. He was like 27, right? I was like, fuck, dog, you're younger than me, like you're younger than me and you're counseling me, like like you got it going on, right? But he's black, and I think a lot of it for the counseling part is it's always work, 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 and no decompression. It's like, so for me, like even having a conversation to him saying like, listen, man, we don't always got to talk about your problems. We can just, shoot the shit, go for a breeze, whatever, and that right there is like, okay, boom, like, okay, it's not about me. It's about like getting to know you also, So once again, it's about connection, right? It's all we're all talking. It's connection. It's about opening up problems, discussing it, creating connection, creating bond, and putting something in place. So
I think to both Kylie and Jodel's points, well, most of my film stemmed from trying to find safe spaces, and specifically when you look at the intersection of queer Black folk, you already have systemic racism against you, and then you have the discriminatory aspects of being a queer person in society that exists today, and it just creates more and more barriers for people to find or cultivate these spaces. And I think to Guylee's points about elders and the importance of that, and Jodel brought up, just any age and what that provides. You can learn something from anyone at any age, no matter what. But to see someone who is thriving and or surviving and is still present, that identifies within your community, elders specifically are so valuable. And in the queer community specifically, with the AIDS epidemic that passed, that took a lot of elders from that community. And so I just think that having more conversations, like we've all said, I don't have the answer to what the space looks like 100% or what it may or may not be, but it's important that we connect more with our elders, and they are seen and they are celebrated, and we're all affirmed in that, because that alone, seeing someone, even like with seeing Guy Lee's story or Jodel's story, and having that being shown, and having that being shown to maybe someone you don't even know who you might be connecting with, and it might not necessarily be like we had a face-to-face conversation, but it can be impactful for someone to just see like they're alive, straight up alive. Like, and it shouldn't be that base level, but for some communities it is, and I think we all can attest to that. So I just think the work is ongoing, like we've all been saying, but that connection can take many forms and is all really valuable.
Another thing that I wanted to add to that, based on what Jodel said, is I think that another thing for a lot of people to think about too, in terms of like African Nova Scotian people and communities, is that therapy will look different to us. And so it may not be that I'm meeting you at your office every week to have a conversation. It's like Jodel said, like maybe sometimes it's us going to take a walk. Like I think that my time working for the school board as an African student support worker, you learn to adapt. Like you it's hard to get a kid to come in your office and then sit down and then tell you everything that's going on and then listen to your strategic plan. It's like you have to find ways to adapt, and I feel like the best way to do that is working with kids, because they will take you all over the place and you will learn to talk to them and cultivate these kinds of conversations with them, literally on the playground playing basketball. And I think that those are where like those decompression points come in. So another thing is like because sometimes people will be like listening to this conversation, people like, oh, I'll provide therapy services for you guys. And it's like, but then again, without that cultural aspect of it, it's like they don't understand that maybe it looks different for us. Like maybe therapy for us is recreational. It's in different ways and different aspects. And I thought that was a good thing to throw out there, because maybe it's not just picking up the phone and talking to somebody, or going to an office and sitting there and just telling your whole life story.
100%.
Maybe it takes a different route, and it definitely does stem from connection.
For
Yeah, I
me,
think we've always. Oh, sorry, Jodel.
I'm
I
just gonna
think
say,
we. Okay.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, okay. I think we've all had those moments of people coming into spaces and being like, "Hey, I'm here to save you," or something, or just like, "We're gonna help." And we know how, because we've done it with this group, so we're gonna do it with your group, which is really condescending, and like also just, it's not necessarily, I know sometimes it can come from good intentions, but if you're coming into a group of people, like you said, Kylie, African Nova Scotians, there's so much history specifically in Nova Scotia. I grew up in Nova Scotia. I'm not African Nova Scotian, for example, but I've always recognized that, as far as like historically speaking, like I very much am proud of Nova Scotia and I love Nova Scotia, but there is a difference, and that was made very clear to me early on, because there is a deep, deep, deep rooted history with the communities here, and that can be said for a lot of different communities. And so I think, to your point, Kylie, having these conversations within your own community and not having people come in and say, well, this is how we think you should do it, but actually cultivating those conversations amongst each other is important, because unfortunately we know best what we need within our own communities. and that goes to the African Nova Scotian community. It goes to like other communities across the country, but there's just layers to each community that aren't necessarily understood from the outside, and that's just the reality. And to respect that and to really do it justice and really do the work, it takes having that understanding sometimes as well.
I was just gonna add back to my own personal experiences, right? Like for me, it was just like the disconnect, right? And um, growing up as a kid, like you look for acceptance, and when you don't have the acceptance that you feel like you should, the positive influence, I was accepted by the wrong of people, and that just created my situation. Um, but they're like that's why like my mind like I'm like you guys have no idea what's going on in this mind. Like I'm blah, 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 blah. That's why I'm trying to like talk right and cut you off, and I didn't mean to try to cut you off, but just lose my train of thought, right? Um, but for me and the counselor, like my experience, because I only speak through what I live through. Like I can't really speak about it unless if I'm doing it, have done it, or you know, well, I can't really see the future. But for me, talking to JJ, is about the bonding, just about the bonding thing, feeling accepted and bonding. Like I think it's important to understand the trauma that a person's going through. It might be no dad figure. Maybe you need a dad figure, somebody to just vent to. Or it might be the environment that you spend your time around. It might be so like you guys say, it's definitely everybody is all individualized. But I think it's about creating the safe environment. What does that look like again? Where like how do people feel safe going to an environment and feeling comfortable with what they're dealing with? Like where does a safe environment, like where would that a safe environment be? Like it's all questions that no answers to.
So when you got involved with the wrong crowd, right?
Yeah.
Was it because you were like, were you lost? Were they lost?
My I I had I was like doing good. Like I was doing good. I was doing good in school. It was just my grade 11 year. Like as a kid, I was in and out of trouble, but didn't really do bad. But my grade 11 year, my grandfather had died, and I just put myself in a different area, and that's where the different me came. Like my mind's just I'm in the conversation, but I don't think my mind's in the conversation or in the question.
Mhm. So we only have a few minutes left, but I want to jump into like just your guys' experience working with Sopaz, because he is like someone who has done so much in the community, um, in the media, and just like, you know, I could go on with all the things that he's done, and he's worked on all of your films. So um, does anyone want to like touch base on like just working with him and you know what
Wow.
that was like?
For me, like when I did Fearless Faces with him, is like that was when I kind of seen like a little bit of hope for myself, right? Um, so like it's been a pleasure working with him. It's been a roller coaster. He's the type of guy that I don't know. I just got sad all of a sudden, so I apologize if you guys see tears trickling down my eyes. But he's the type of guy that like he's there for you when when you're ready to go see him. So it's been an eventful time doing Sobaz. He's definitely helped me a lot. I had a hospital trip, one time, and like not even my own parents, like my mentor, so it was there for me. So it gives you a different feeling or a purpose. It makes you feel like you have a chance to be something better, and so that's what Sobaz did for me. So
Mm-hmm.
good guy.
Yeah. Now, I'll leave it with one more question. Because it's the Black Film Festival and you guys are a part of the National Emerging Filmmaking Program. So, um, you know, one of the topics of this filmmaking aspect was what it means to be Black in your city. So, what for you guys? I mean, what does it mean to be Black in your city?
I'll go first. I'll actually answer what you just said and then that. I will say one thing from working with Sobaz is in my film he conducted my one-on-one interview, like the interview with me, and I will say that he has like this way of cultivating a conversation where he can pull everything out of you without you knowing that you're giving it, and to the point that like you feel like there's nobody else in the room. Like talking with him, I felt like we were both just sharing and bouncing back ideas and experiences, and it's almost like I forgot the cameras were rolling, and so I do really enjoy that about himself, and I know that that's an element that he definitely brings to community, as you can see that he's cultivated those kinds of relationships with Jodelle and other young men in the community. Um, and then what does it mean to be Black in my city? um I would say that it means to be proud. When I moved away a couple of years ago to Ottawa, I don't like I always known, I guess, the history and the importance of our community, but like moving away and having so many people question you on like what does it mean to be an African Nova Scotian, and then you have to find different ways to kind of tell that story and explain where you're from. And then you even see different communities, you learn about them, you get to experience them. You realize there really is nothing like home. Like moving away made me realize how much I loved home and how unique African Nova Scotian people are. Like there's sometimes I'll be at events or functions and I'll be like, there really is no other people like African Nova Scotians. Like it's a different kind of experience. Um, and I really do. I love that for us. So to me, being Black in my city now for sure is proud. I'm always proud. I always announce that kind of when I introduce myself. Um, and when I talk to youth, I love kind of instilling that confidence in them to like, be proud of where you come from. Because growing up for me, coming from North End Dartmouth, always hearing negative stereotypes. Uh, at one point I was like almost ashamed. It was like when people were like, "Where do you live?" and "Where are you from?" It was like I wanted to shy away from that conversation. But then when you realize it's like those places, those communities, those people really made you who you are, and you really dedicate and give it all back to them, it's like I'm proud. Proud and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be a part of this kind of community. I'm grateful to know the people that I know, and have the experiences that I've had. And yeah, I would say that. I don't want to take it.
So for me, complete opposite. You want to repeat the question just so like everybody knows? Like, I mean, well, it's recorded. Like they'll know anyway.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It
For
means
me, go ahead.
it means
Okay. For me, it was complete opposite. Like my mom was white, and my dad's black. My dad wasn't in my like he was in my life, but he didn't live in the household. So like I was definitely I was kind of I don't know. I was kind of I don't I don't know. It's a touchy subject. Like okay, I'll just give it to you raw, like straight. I was like basically like black people for me, like like my household, like my grandparents, I guess apparently they were racist. And it wasn't until my mom had me that that kind of changed the whole dynamics of it, right? And so like my mom, like on her household, like I was always kind of feared to be fearful of my own fucking race. Like don't trust a bunch of black people. Like don't be around this person. Like like always color. It was always color to me, right? Meanwhile my mom was white. So I just in my city, being black in my city, I was confused. Like, like my identity, I was confused. I didn't know, like, I'd always identify, like, are you white or black? I'd be like, I'm light skinned, or like half. I mean, say half, right? It wasn't until I went to jail that somebody's like, you can't be half of a man, bro. You're either half white, half black, or you're whole. Like there's no half. Like, you can't, like, what I mean? Like, I was like, I'm half white, half black. He was like, you can't be half, bro. You're not half. What? You're half of a man. He's like, is your dad black or is your mom white? Like, well, you're black, bro. Like, take a hold of your roots. Like, be happy for who you are. It wasn't until that opportunity that I realized, okay, like, my identity, like, I don't really know who I am, right? So for me, it was the complete opposite. And then as I got older, like, people ask you, like, what are you? Like, I'm black, like, but you're mixed. Like, you got something else in you. Yeah, my mom's white. Like, I'm half. I still use that term half, but in my community, for me, being black, I was kind of I don't want to say the wrong word, right? But I just I wasn't taught that, black was good. Like, color black wasn't a good color. You'd be very cautious of that color. If you're around it, be very cautious. Don't trust it. Kind of like that. And I'm not saying my fucking family's a big, they're not racist or anything. I'm just saying, like, that was always the upbringing, that her upbringing, which is my mom, was, and obviously my mom had, changed that, fell in love with my dad, and my dad's black, so, but, like, for me as a kid, growing up as a kid, I didn't get a chance to enjoy my nationality as a black man.
So has anything changed now? Like, are you embracing it more, or do you feel the same way, or do you want to learn more about your roots? Like, has anything changed?
The thing about that is my dad didn't know his parents that well, right? My dad's black. He didn't know his parents that well. My dad met his dad, man, like, I don't know how long my granddad's been dead, probably like 15 years ago. But my dad met his dad when, like, he was like 40 or something, or something crazy, And they got a bond, and then he ended up dying. He ended up falling down, cracking his head open. He lived in old people's home. Ended up falling down, cracking his head. He died. My dad went into depression. My dad didn't know anything about his roots, So, like, I'm still disconnected. I went to Windsor, and I met some of my black family down there, but, like, it's just, like, I'm disconnected from my black side of the family because my dad didn't have no connection with his side. So it's like the bloodline that I have that is black is, like, slowly dying, and so it wasn't until I went to jail, though, that, like, I kind of started identifying more as black, like, because when I had that conversation with that guy, it made sense to me, right? It was like, like, you're kind of pretty much dissing one of your parents, like, I don't know. He's like, your dad made you, your mom conceived you, but, like, like, black is dying anyway, and you want to be a different color, like, so I realized, like, I'm gonna take hold of that, and call myself a black man and be happy, you know. And so that's I'm still kind of trying to understand my identity, because, like, I never really had anybody that I felt like showed me a view of that, but I identify more as a black man than I have as a younger kid. So I hope that answers your question. If not, you can elaborate.
It does. It does. And I think a lot of people will find our conversation so far really interesting. Deborah, what about you? What is it? I mean, you're in Toronto right now, and you may not be Nova Scotian per se, but you did, like you said, grow up
I
here.
consider myself Nova Scotian. I don't know if it's the same as African Nova Scotian necessarily,
Yeah.
but I will say it proudly. Like, I tell everyone I'm from Nova Scotia. I'm like, this is, it's the best place. Go visit it, blah, blah, blah. But like Jodelle was saying, it's complicated, of course, like anything is. I think it's great that you shared that, Jodelle and Kylie, of course, because there's so many different experiences within the city. When we think of Halifax specifically, we can't just say African Nova Scotian anymore. Like, that is a big part of it, and it's a big history, but there are so many immigrants that come through, a lot of different groups that are coming through now, and they identify with Halifax, and they are black in Halifax too, and very valid experiences as well. Personally, like I said, I was born in Toronto, grew up in Halifax. I mean, I'm proud of it. But my mom was born and raised in Nova Scotia, but my grandparents are from the Caribbean. So her experience was also always separate from the African Nova Scotian narrative specifically, but still like very strong ties to Nova Scotia. And but it is a different experience, and I feel like there's so many different nuances within that. I don't know, but all I could say is that I'm proud to be from Halifax, and just to carry that with me. And I think that it's great that we're having these conversations and showing the nuances within Blackness in Nova Scotia, I guess, to put it bluntly, because there, and within my film specifically, I was really grateful to have a lot of different ages, genders, like we've all mentioned, but also one person was African Nova Scotian through and through and through, like history just goes back, you know. And then one person was from the Caribbean, and then one person was from like a different part of Canada and moved to Toronto, or sorry, moved to Halifax. Wow, my brain. And they all had been there for at least 10 years or more. I mean, one being like his whole life. So it was really interesting to hear them hold conversation, but also provide those different perspectives, because they all consider it home and are building homes here. And what does that mean? You know, it takes different forms. So
Awesome. Does anyone have anything that they want to add? We have a couple of minutes. We have a couple of minutes left here. So is there anything that you guys want to get off your chest or say about your film or about this experience? The floor is yours.
For me, I'll just take the floor just because my mind, like I said, it's going right. But for me, no, I'm, you know what, like when you create a piece of work, such as, you know, spoken word or something, it's one thing to being able to voice it and letting people listen to it, but it's another thing to create a piece of something powerful, you know. And when I created my piece, and I gave a few people a teaser, you know, like, yo, peep this, you know, this is the product, you know, guys and girls. But the last experience that I showed was in at the Inspire program, and I showed my experience, what I'm dealing with. And I know people like my whole life, like in that room, like there was like people like 10, 15 years, 20 years, you know, I know them for a long time. And one person said, man, I never thought you would go through that, like, you know, like like this is a different part of you, you know. And another person said, yeah, I felt when you said this, you know. So we create that connection. And there was nothing more feeling and fulfilling, satisfying than watching somebody watch your piece and connecting with them on a different level, you know. And so for me, um I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I'll let Kylie go because we only got a little bit of time. So
Um, to piggyback off of that, I was just going to say the same thing, that I am truly grateful for Fabian for this experience. And I hope it continues for generations. Like, I feel like we don't see a lot of representation in media. And obviously, representation is important, especially when you talk about the Black experience, because as Deborah said, we're not monolith. You know, it's not always going to be the same thing. So many times, they try to group us together and paint the same picture, which we know has created those stigmas and those stereotypes that they use against us. But representation like this all across Canada, I think, show how diverse and how beautiful Black people are. So, like Jodelle said, I am just truly grateful. I'm grateful to share this space tonight with you guys.
yeah, just quickly to echo what you both said. Thank you so much to the Halifax Black Film Festival for having us, for sure, and also just for this experience, for allowing us to share these stories. I want to thank Sobaz and all the teams and everyone involved for just, you know, working so hard with us, and just for allowing us to amplify more voices and just be here to talk more on that. So thank you again.
And thank you guys for sharing so much. This is hopefully such a educational panel for our viewers. And if you guys want to check out more, you can get your all access pass on halifaxblackfilm.com. Thank you guys so much.